Welcome everyone to our Just Energy for All webinar. We're really excited to have you here. In today's topic, we're exploring how to empower our faith communities with the Energy Star resources. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into how to use these resources, what do they entail, and how we can share those, but also implement them in our own institutions, congregations. As you know, this webinar series is part of our Just Energy for All campaign, which is focused on climate justice priority and truly a just energy transition that we want to achieve together. My name is Ilka Vega, and I am the Executive for Economic and Environmental Justice with United Women in Faith, and have served with United Women in Faith for 13 years as a member. And today I'm joining you from the Tiwa lands of El Paso, Texas. And to open us into this space, into the sisterhood of grace and space together, I want to invite Margaret Knox. She serves as part of the Northern California Nevada Conference in the role of membership nurture and outreach. She's originally from Glasgow, Scotland, and Margaret came with her husband and her 3 children. She moved to Fallon, Nevada, which she reminded us earlier is famous for being the hometown of Top Gun, the famous trainee program from the Navy. And she moved there in the 1985. So we have heard of this place from the movies, perhaps the Top Gun movie. And her home church there is Fallon Epworth UMC, where she's active in her community. She shares her membership in the United Women in Faith circles has been an important part of her life, and she's involved at the local district and conference level. And she also is locally active in charge of their food pantry, laundry, shower, and ministries to SPRC and church councils. So Margaret, we're really thankful to have you, and thank you for opening us in prayer today.
Let us bow our head in prayer. Father, God, creator of our world and all that lives in it, we invite you to be present with all participants of the webinar. May we open our ears and our minds. May we be attentive to the education and knowledge that's being provided for us today. There is a great need, Father. Everyone is needed to meet the goals, using our influence and our voices locally, statewide, and in all the ways we can. Give us courage, Father, to be bold in holding government and industry leaders accountable for any lack of action on their part. Change is needed to ensure that clean and green methods of energy are available to all, regardless of where they live. Each of us as individuals can make a difference by choosing to be proactive in being good stewards of our earth, to be unafraid to step out of our comfort zone in our effort. May we use our voices to advocate for those who have suffered from health issues caused by their air being polluted by the location of certain industry, homes with lead pipes, and much more. We owe it to you, Father, and to our future generations to continually faithfully raising awareness, diligently working to restore balance in nature. We ask, Father, that in time, all nations will be united in understanding the necessity, the priority of agreeing to collaborate in order for change to become a reality. When we all work together, things happen. In the name of Jesus, amen.
So now I want to walk us through our agenda for today. I'll give a little bit of introduction as to why do we come here together and why do we care about utilities and Energy Star as United Methodists, as people of faith. And then I'll invite Gary Lawson, National Manager at the Energy Star Small Business and Congregations Program at EPA, to tell us a little bit more about the resources that are available. And then I also invite Jenny Phillips from Global Ministries to tell us about how do we implement then, how do we go from ideas into actions? How do we implement these resources and have these important conversations? So then afterwards, we ask that everyone writes their questions in the chat or writes them down, and then we'll wait until the end of both of our speakers to discuss and bring up those questions. And then we'll talk a little bit more about next steps and how to go forward from here. So bring a little bit of a quick moment for sharing. We want to share with you actually part of the Book of Discipline, just to share a little bit of why we're here, why it is important that we think about utilities. And so we can put up the slide on social principles. They remind us that the creation is the Lord's and we're responsible for the ways in which we use and abuse it also. We're talking about water and oil and soil and air and minerals and energy resources and plants and animal life and space and everything that is part of creation. We want to value it and conserve it, not only because, well, it's useful to us and we need it in the long term, which is a pretty good reason in all of its own. But most importantly, we as people of faith, for us, most important reason is that they're God's creation. They're a manifestation of God's love. And it's part of our call to stewardship, right? We have this biblical call to stewardship. And more concretely, as we see on the screen, it's part of our social principles, right? And even more so, we have the responsibility as United Methodist, we see that it is the responsibility of the church and its members, ourselves, to place a high priority on changes in economic, political, social, technological lifestyles to support more ecologically, more equitable, more sustainable world that is leading to, higher quality of life, higher protections for God's creation. So very specific asks for us, members of the United Methodist Church, in our social principles. Of course, this we're going to have some revisions, our social principles coming up in a few months. But that reminder is still there, and it's very much embedded in how we want to practice our ministries, how we want to live out our faith. And so whether it is a topic that you have engaged actively or not in the past, we hope that everyone today here can have insights on how to, be better stewards of creation, of these utility resources, not just utilities, but also other resources in our congregations, and this can have impacts in our personal spaces as well, but more importantly, in our collective spaces of worship and institutions where we can make a big impact. So to help us diving a little bit more into our conversation today, I want to invite our first speaker, Jerry Lawson, again, National Manager of the Energy Star Small Business and Congregations Program at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Jerry has a Master's of Public Affairs degree from Arizona State University and a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Arkansas. He previously served as Executive Director for Conservation, Customer Service, Rates, and Forecasting at Lower Colorado River Authority, which generates electricity for cities and rural electric co-ops and provides water and agriculture in areas surrounding Austin, Texas, where I also happen to study there and live there for a little bit. He was also the director of the City of Austin Resource Management Department, which successfully substituted energy efficiency to prevent the construction of a new 500 megawatt coal-fired power plant, which is very impressive. And he also served as the Deputy Director of Conservation and Renewable Resources at the Arkansas Department of Energy. So with that said, Jerry, we're really thankful for you to have you again. And yeah, we look forward to your insights.
Thank you. Well, first, I want to thank Ilka and Keisha for this opportunity. Slides are showing, correct, Ilka?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, I noted in the poll, the majority, maybe 80%, were not currently involved with utility issues, but 60% felt empowered to get involved and discuss that. So that's really excellent. EPA has been around since 1970, and our commission from the United States Congress is to protect human health. And of course, we can't do that without protecting the ecosystems that provide us the clean air and water, the soil for our crops and for our fisheries. We have a tool I'll talk about called Portfolio Manager, in which a house of worship or a K-12 school or a camp or a retreat can baseline and track their energy and water and greenhouse gas emissions. And there are other tools and training and technical support I'll mention. We also like to recognize a job well done. Why buildings and plants are so important? Well, they're responsible for about 45% of all the United States CO2 emissions. And then we know, in a given building, and this goes for worship facilities and most commercial buildings, about 30% of the energy for which the organization pays is wasted. It's, of course, not willful. It's often baked into the building, the equipment, the operations and maintenance. But the good news is 10% of this can be saved and really repurposed to your ministry, your mission, with no cost or very low cost actions that you can take. And as I show maybe too much text on a couple of slides, I'll call your attention to the URL address at the bottom where you can learn more about the numbers I'm citing here. I think important here is that, and it takes a long time to get all this data together. So we know that in 2020 alone, Energy Star prevented the equivalent of more than 5% of total greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. And doing this saves $7 to $17 billion in public health benefits. And I think the one facts I would call out here is that more than 750,000 Americans work in the manufacturing and installation of Energy Star certified products. And this is about 35% of all US energy efficiency jobs. And then maybe more importantly, for every dollar of every one of your federal tax dollars spent on Energy Star, about $350 in savings are achieved by our partners and citizens who use Energy Star certified products. Likewise, for every dollar spent on Energy Star, about $230 is invested by businesses and households in the equipment and services. And again, here's the address to find out more. We have partners, thousands of partners, and a denomination can be a partner, an individual congregation within a denomination, nonprofit faith-based organizations like yours can be partners. We're very open. There are no obligations or requirements to being a partner. It's a feel-good agreement that an attorney would tell you is a handshake. And it's largely one in which we make information available at no cost, of course. So tools, training, technical support are what we offer. We like to recognize achievement. If you're a partner, you'll receive a quarterly e-newsletter for congregations and a notice of our webinars. And I'll say a little here about what we call co-branding. Here's something we're very proud of that we just did with Ilka and Keisha. We have an 8-page checklist. And this is the kind of the quick start with Energy Star is download this checklist. I think it's going to be on that Keisha and Ilka are putting it online for download. In 8 pages with just bullets. It's a checklist to walk around with your green team and see what you've done and not done with regard to managing your facility, lighting, the building envelope being roof, walls, doors, windows, interior, water, hot and cold, exterior, water use for irrigation, etc., heating, ventilation, air conditioning. There's always a growing, it seems, office equipment plug load with more and more equipment. And then most of you have a kitchen, a family room where there's food service equipment, which Energy Star also certifies and rates. And then we have information for saving water and recycling from our sister program, WaterSense. And here again are some links. You can download the generic checklist. It's not your version, but also we have it in Spanish. And then if 8 pages isn't enough, we have a 90-page action workbook. It's also English, Spanish, and it's more of a narrative. It talks about establishing stewardship goals, educating your congregation, even your clergy, helping them along. We have links that may be useful. Creating a stewardship team, assessing and setting goals, having an action plan, evaluating progress, and then celebrating achievements. So that's also available for download today. I think it's 4 megabytes or so. But and what we show here are sample covers. Hope to do one with you all soon, but it's a little heavier lift than the 8 pages, just to review it. This is the cover of Interfaith Power and Light's version, and this is the cover of the Catholic Climate Covenants version. So our premier tool is Portfolio Manager. More than 300,000 U.S. commercial buildings are using it. More than 2,000 worship facilities are using it. And all told, this is about a quarter of all U.S. Commercial square footage. And we're adding about 1,000 properties a day. Something like 40% of the Fortune 500 are using this tool. They could pay for any tool they want, but they're using this free tool from Energy Star. What it gets you with putting in 12 months of your energy utility data is a 1 to 100 score. It's rating your house of worship compared to all other United States houses of worship. The score of 75 or higher is eligible for certification. And we'll have the Spanish version online later this year. What is really doing the score of 1 to 100 is an assessment of the whole building, the whole house of worship. It doesn't include transportation, but it's all the energy use in the building is in this 1 to 100 score. Now, you don't get a score, but you can also enter your water consumption. You can also track your waste or recycling. These are optional, whereas energy is the requirement. You can track green power purchases. You can set it up to share data. Theoretically, all your member congregations could share data, and you could roll this into one national number for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. And we have guidance on how to do that, and we'll do another workshop like this if you want to pursue such as that. Importantly here, it's tracking your greenhouse gas changes over time. And I'll get to the next slide and explain that in a little more detail. We do have standard and custom reports that you can generate. I'll show you some samples, and it's within Portfolio Manager that you apply for certification. So importantly here, weather normalization. Using your zip code, Portfolio Manager will factor out weather. So what you're seeing is the actual energy performance of the building without regard to weather. Likewise, with your zip code, it's looking at the emissions of the utilities, the electric utility and gas utility serving your zip code. And it's using their emissions factor multiplying by your kilowatt hours or your overall BTUs to find out really the emissions of your worship facility. And here's some just screenshots of what standard reports look like. They're very colorful. And I'd say if, learning a new software isn't highly attractive, get your youth group involved. They'll jump on it, and we can help train them. And it can really help educate and support your facility management. We think it's very important that your facility management feels that you're not saying they're not doing their job adequately, but that you're there to support them. So we're very big on supporting facility managers. We have a very vigorous training website where you can see YouTube videos to learn about Portfolio Manager. We have a dozen or so PDFs that you can download that are steps 1, 2, 3, 4, how to benchmark and do other things in Portfolio Manager. And then we have a help desk that the users say is very, very helpful. So every year we have about 500 worship facilities eligible for certification, but we only have 136 because we do require data verification to uphold the integrity of the logo. So we can help you find a licensed professional architect or engineer. We have a zip code driven licensed professional finder to help do the data verification. And in August or thereabouts, we're launching an extension of Energy Star certification, in which facilities that are already Energy Star certified for energy can go further with the next gen certification for having at least 30% of total energy coming from renewables, or that their greenhouse gas emission intensity is within a specified level. And this is getting more into electrification. And we'll be providing more support for electrification over the coming months. This is just a shot, and I'll show you the URL addresses for all of these, or all of these are on this one page at the bottom. You can find our Green Power Partnership at EPA. This is the solar program. We have the environmental justice screen that with the zip code, you can find out what EJ issues are in your area. Safer Choice is a certification program for detergents and cleaners and the type of products used around the worship facility, even at home. You can find this label on products at the grocery store. WaterSense is our water efficiency program. We have greenhouse gas inventory tools. This is just to show that we have, I'll show you the URL for food, being more efficient with food, protecting pollinators, and even helping with low-income energy efficiency. So this page of the slides, which you all can have, has live links to all of the images I just showed you. This is Green Power Partnership, what it looks like. There's a great toolbox for evaluating solar for your facilities. This is Healthy Houses of Worship, specifically for congregations. There's a one page each on all these health issues that you may want to consider for a healthier congregation. Saving water. Some of you are in urban situations where there's stormwater runoff. So that's something we have support and guidance for. And here again are some resources for help and for training. And I'll end with my email address. I'll be happy to hear from you and happy to help with any questions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. That was, well, just packed with a lot of good information. We really appreciate all the insights and great resources that you share with us. I'm sure everyone's going to have a lot of questions, and especially is going to want that presentation at the hand so that they can click on those amazing tools like the action workbooks and the portfolio manager, and yeah, so many of the good things. I know the EJ screen is one that I've used on a regular basis as well, and has been very helpful. And so just giving us some great ideas of what's possible in our congregations, thinking about our health, think about taking good stewardship of the resources. And as we discussed, and Margaret was saying, right, in her prayer, everyone has a role to play in caring for God's creation, and also on how to operationalize these resources. And so to help us walk more into the idea on how to go from these resources into action, now I want to invite Reverend Jenny Phillips, who is the Director of Environmental Sustainability at the General Board of Global Ministries, and also includes the United Methodist Committee on Relief, or what we normally call UMCOR, which is a worldwide relief development agency of the United Methodist Church, and I'm sure many of us have heard of. She pilots and integrates sustainability practices for the agency operations and programs, including domestic and international disaster relief, global health, agriculture, and she works with many interfaith partners and faith communities on solar and energy efficiency, land use, waste management, and other programming. We've also had the opportunity to collaborate in the past. Many great efforts that Jenny is leading. She also has her master in divinity from Union Theological Seminary in New York and a Bachelor of Arts in Communications from the University of Washington. And she's currently based in Atlanta, Georgia. So welcome, Jenny, and we're really looking forward to hearing your insights as well.
Thanks so much, Ilka. It's great to be here with you all. It's great to get to share alongside Jerry, who is just a pillar of wisdom and support in the world of energy efficiency for local churches and other houses of worship. So thank you so much. And I want to also mention my home conference is Pacific Northwest, because I see quite a few Pacific Northwest United Women in Faith and others, Friends of United Methodist Women in Faith on this webinar. So it's great to see you all. And I lead the Global Ministries Earth Keepers program, and it's great to see so many Global Ministries Earth Keepers here. I am going to share my screen. We're going to talk a little bit. We heard some things about ways to move forward with becoming more energy efficient. And we're going to talk a little bit today about the process of moving from idea to action, because we know that, I know, at least for me, after I hear Jerry speak, I'm like, great, I want to go do something about all of this, because there are all these tools, there are all these resources. But more than once, I've had the experience of going to a committee or a decision maker with this brilliant resource and not getting the response I'd hoped for, in terms of, you know, saying, yes, we want to do it too, you know. So so I want to share a little bit and brainstorm with you a little bit about what it looks like to move from idea to action. But first, I want to share a little bit more about our work at Global Ministries. And I want to mention the Interagency Just and Equitable Net Zero Commitment. If you come to these webinars, you've probably heard about this before from Ilka, but Global Ministries is in partnership with United Women in Faith and 10 other United Methodist agencies with a commitment to net zero emissions by 2050 across ministries, facilities, operations, and investments. And we're committed to leveraging the gifts of our connection by putting equity and justice at the center as we build a net zero emission economy by 2050. And I'm throwing this slide, I almost didn't put the slide in, but then listening to Jerry, I added it because I want you to know that the interagency group, the tool of choice for measuring our building emissions is Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So I just want you all to know that if you're thinking about this tool, know that this is what the agencies are using, because it really, like you said, it comes at no cost to us. It has great features. It can generate that greenhouse gas emission report that we need. And I'll share that in our agency at Global Ministries, I've been the person putting the data in. And 2 times now, I've discovered problems with our headquarters office HVAC or energy systems that weren't seen on the billing. It was because I put the bills in Energy Star Portfolio Manager and noticed big discrepancies. One time we found out our solar panels weren't working because suddenly we were using a lot more energy and there didn't seem to be any explanation. So we had the panels checked, and it turns out some of our solar panels weren't working and it wasn't showing up on the meter. And then one time we found out the utility wasn't billing us for our energy use. They were only billing us all the fees. And even though that sounds great, they do bill you later, which is not great for a budget when you think your bill was small and you find out 6 months later you have to pay 6 months of back bills. So I just highly recommend that portfolio manager program, and we love it. I shared this slide, Ilka, when you were looking for a slide to come up and it wasn't coming. I was like, oh, I got that one. So you already heard a little bit about the social principles, and also in the social principles we have this piece on caring for creation, that we have committed ourselves as United Methodists to a new way of being that integrates environmental, economic, and social justice. And we're called to participate actively in the healing of creation. And as Ilka shared, you know, that includes thinking about your utilities and advocating for better policies with utilities. And it also means thinking about your buildings and how you're consuming resources. At Global Ministries, we have a theology of mission, and it says that God's mission reclaims the life of all creatures and redeems all creation for God's intended purpose. God's light shines in every corner of the earth, and we believe God's mission extends to all of creation. As I mentioned, we have the Global Ministries Earth Keepers program, where we equip United Methodists to develop environmental projects for their communities. There's a significant anti-racism component. We teach community organizing and project planning, and we offer grants of up to $10,000 to support projects with environmental impact. Our next training is in its homework stages right now. I see Eric Walker is here, and there may be other people in that training here. And then we'll be having an in-person training in fall, and details are coming out about that, hopefully very soon. I also just want to mention that we provide solar for health facilities in parts of the world with low energy access. And I'm particularly passionate about it because it's so important for so many women. This is Irene Dolo in the center. She is a woman in Liberia who had malaria while she was pregnant. And she went to Ganta Hospital, the hospital you see here, and she had to be treated in the dark because they didn't have the energy they needed to be able to turn the lights on. The grid isn't reliable. They didn't have enough fuel to use energy all the time they needed it. And so she had this experience of being treated in the dark, and she was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a terrible birth experience because the doctor isn't going to have light. Her family started saving up for a flashlight so the doctor would have a flashlight, if nothing else. And she came in when it was time to give birth. She came in women are already shaken when they are going into labor. It's a lot, but to add on not having light in the place where you're giving birth when you want it and need it is really hard. But in the time between when she went to the hospital the first time and the time she went to give birth, Global Ministries have partnered with the hospital to provide solar energy. You can see the batteries on the left. You can see the operating room on the right. That's the room where she ended up having a C-section and was so very glad for there to be electricity during that major surgery. So I just share that because I know a story like that might resonate with many people here who've given birth and reflect on their experiences. We also provide solar for disaster response in the US and internationally. And there are just, again, so many situations where having electricity makes all the difference when you're going through a challenging situation. But we're here to talk about energy efficiency. So let's get to that. And energy efficiency, this is something else where we're working with our disaster response teams as our disaster recovery managers work with communities to rebuild homes. We've started teaching energy efficiency and home weatherization skills so that when that rebuilding happens, those who are doing the work can ensure that the houses are sealed well. They're not drafty, they're not losing their AC or their heat when they need to be holding it inside. So our hope is that this skill building among those who are doing the work will help those who then are moving back into those homes save some money on their energy bills so they have more money for all their other needs post-disaster. We also work in a variety of ways with congregations that are looking to become more energy efficient. I just realized these are duplicate pictures because I dropped our Energy Star Action Workbook picture in here. I didn't notice that it was the same picture as the other one. But we co-branded with EPA on an Energy Star Action Workbook for congregations. It's a terrific resource. I highly recommend it. This is the longer one, and I gave Keisha the link in the chat for where to go on our environmental sustainability page to download that if you're interested in grabbing a copy now. Now, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and I'm going to tell you a story. It is a tale of two apples. This apple comes from a national chain grocery store. It's a Pink Lady apple. It's organic. This apple comes from our local farmers market, just a few blocks from my house, grown in Georgia. Not organic, but the farmer, I can talk to the farmer and she can tell me that we use as few pesticides as possible. We are moving toward organic, but the cost of organic labeling is too expensive. Both of these apples I got out of my kitchen today. I bought this apple. My husband bought this apple. My husband always buys this apple. And he is the person in our household who makes the dinner, buys the groceries, does the dishes. I'm very fortunate, but he buys this apple and not this apple. And when I go to the farmer's market and I get this apple, I say, you don't need to get apples. I've already got this wonderful local apple. This is what to put in the kids' lunches. This is what we should be eating. But this is his preferred apple because, well, I'm not going to get into the because. But here's why I'm telling you about these two apples in my household life. Again, he's the one who does the dishes, makes the dinner, buys the groceries. He does all the work. And so when I show up on the weekend with my local apple that I think is morally superior to his grocery store apple, I don't quite have a leg to stand on. I do because I know all the values that surround this apple, but he's got his reasons for buying this apple. And so the challenge, there's this divide that has to be bridged where he does the work. He's got a way of doing things that works for him. And this outside apple with me showing up, when the work's already been done, doesn't feel helpful to him. It feels like an attack. It feels frustrating. It feels like, where have I been all week doing the work? And I think this is a good metaphor for sometimes what happens in the context of a faith community, where there might be a staff person or people who are doing the bulk of that day-to-day grind of work, of managing a building, keeping it running despite all of the challenges that happen. Or there might be a finance committee that is making sure the bills are getting paid, all the different tasks that keep that building going. And then an enthusiastic, well-meaning person comes in and says, look what I've got. Here's how you should do your work. This is how it should be. And it isn't received with appreciation. It is received with frustration, and both parties sometimes walk away from that conversation just feeling not heard and not valued and like they aren't seen. Does this sound familiar to anybody? I can't really see you because I've got my screen, but give something in the chat if this sounds familiar to you, or if you've ever witnessed it with one of your friends or colleagues. So what I want to do today is, if this doesn't sound familiar to you, then great, because we're going to do a little brainstorming together about how to help folks who experience this. And if you'll give me just a minute, I decided instead of putting things into slides for you, we would work together to make some slides, and then we'll share this slide deck with you. So if you get that great checklist that that Energy Star and UWF have partnered on, you might need someone to actually take that checklist and walk around with it. You might want to walk around with it, but you might also need other people to be involved in that process, especially if the idea is that something new is going to happen because of that process. So can you, and I got to figure out how to see the chat while I'm doing this, but I want to make a list of who makes decisions about buildings. Can you start putting in the chat, who makes decisions? Trustees. Trustees. Custodian. Oh yeah, thanks for reading to me, Keisha. That's helpful.
Facilities manager, pastor and trustees, board of trustees, one board council Church Council, Trustees and Steering Committee, Trustees and Facilities,
Okay.
Governance, Community.
Ooh, I like that. I said, don't know, but we'll
Admin.
find out.
Mhm.
Good idea. This is really a key thing to think about. Who are the people that actually make decisions about the building? And I noticed that when we had that survey at the beginning, 60% feel empowered to have a conversation about these matters. 19 feel they have influence over energy management in your congregation. So, I mean, influence starts with conversation, right? And sharing your values, sharing what you need. So part of the work here is figuring out who to have that conversation with. If you feel like you have the information you need, who do you need to talk with and build relationship with? Now, who does the work to take care of church buildings? Like does the, calling the HVAC person or cleaning up or changing the light bulbs when they burn out? Who does that work? Facilities managers. Everyone like that. Trustees do that work.
Custodian, United Methodist Men, maintenance team, head of trustees, volunteers, office manager.
Okay. Okay. So these people are stakeholders, right? They care about changes that happen to how the building is cared for because they are responsible for getting the work done that it takes to care for it. If it means a change in how they do things, if it means a change in the products they use, they have a stake in all of this. Now, oops, I'm gonna go this one. Who makes sure there's money to pay the bills for the building? Any thoughts on how the bills get paid or who deals with the money? So, okay, trustees, whoops, let me go here.
Finance treasurer, finance committee, budget, members, finance team, treasurer, trustees, administrator, treasurer,
Church council.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead. Church council. So there's some overlap, right? Between the people who make sure there's some money, who do the work, who make decisions. I'm noticing the trustees keep coming up and the facilities manager and the various boards and committees. And so those are folks with whom to build relationship. I love a good church green team. And I love a church green team where the members of the green team are on other committees in the church too, like on the board of trustees, on the finance committee, on the places where key decisions are being made about the infrastructure of the church and how the church is run. Because that's part of how we build relationship, is being present and being part of the work that's happening week to week. Now, not every person feels called to be on the trustees or feels called to be on the finance committee, or sometimes they don't feel equipped, even if they want to. But I think there's a real opportunity here. And I will say particularly for women, because often those committees are dominated by men, at least in my experience. And sometimes that can feel intimidating too, if you don't have a background in maintenance or you don't have a background in finance. So I just want to name this and name that you as a member of your church have every right to put yourself forth, to be on those committees, to serve on those committees. And whether or not you bring expertise, there are plenty of people who bring expertise. But even if you don't have a career in one of these fields or a sense that you have expertise on traditional ways of engagement. You have knowledge, you have wisdom, and you have a set of values that belong at that table. And so I want to encourage you to consider trying to be on one of those committees. And if not joining the committee, showing up regularly to their meetings to listen and hear, and again, build relationships, because you do have something to offer, and there's room. There's lots of room. Okay, let's make another slide here. Who has the administrative task of paying the bills? Who's the person who opens the envelope or the auto pay email, and has to like do the transfer, write the check? Who does that? Treasurer. Financial secretary.
Yes, admin assistant, treasurer, accountant.
And the reason I raise this question is because if I really think that portfolio manager is an excellent first step if you're embarking on a journey to really evaluate your building's energy efficiency and look for ways to improve its efficiency. And portfolio manager relies on information from your utility bills. Some utilities will auto download the information for you. Some utilities will require you to upload data to a spreadsheet that then you upload to Portfolio Manager. And that's how ours is. So if you're in that position, it's a hassle. I'll be honest. It's like I sit down, twice a year and do it, and I'm always like, okay, and I get myself a nice coffee or something to get me through the task. But these are the people who their work could be changed if your church is going to do portfolio manager. So how can that person be supported in that role, or could there be a volunteer position to support them? So I share all of this, and we're making these slides. Oh, this one's about relationship. I know my time is wrapping up, so I don't want to go too much longer here. I share this you're getting it, right? Like that we have to think about who's involved. We have to figure out how to build relationships with them. We have to have some empathy and awareness of their deep contributions to the life of the church historically. And I think it's just so important to come with a spirit of collaboration whenever you're trying to affect significant change, so that people feel engaged and seen and respected. Now, there is a time and a place for shaking your fist at the entity in power, and like I fully honor that. And in the context of a local church, sometimes you can get more energy efficiency interventions with honey, you know what I mean? And if you can really learn about who does what, learn about what they do, it can make a huge difference toward opening up conversations over time that help them hear you better when you're able to share, well, if we get an energy audit, then we will learn ways to save money, because the energy audit outlines steps for saving money and how long it would take to pay off something and what we can do that won't cost us anything. For example, Jerry mentioned that 10% of money that can just be saved by behavior change, no cost. The more we can learn about who's doing the work and what their interests are, the more opportunity we have to meet them where they are and invite them to walk along with us. So I think with that, I'm going to stop here, because I know we want to have time to have conversation. Thanks for listening and joining.
Thank you, Jenny. I think this was an absolutely great reminder. Oftentimes we just focus on how do we navigate the institution, but we forget that we're people and we are also called to build relationships. And in that way, yeah, we can get farther with honey and with being kind to one another, and to, yeah, maybe getting some sweet treat and saying, I learned about this. Let me tell you what I learned about this in this webinar. I think it's a fantastic tool. Have you heard of it? Instead of just trying to say, we have to do this right now. Well, I'll let everyone share if they have some questions or want to share about their experiences, what that has been for them navigating um, their stools or having these conversations in their congregations. If anyone has a question, please feel free to either write it on the chat or you can unmute yourselves as well. A little bit of time.
May I take a moment to thank Jenny for her very generous comments on Energy Star tools. I'm happy that they're working for her.
I mean, it's all true. Like they're a little, I'll also say they're a little intimidating at first. At least they were to me. But the team, Jerry and other members of his team there helped us. And that's part of it too, is that help desk that he mentioned is real. It's real people helping you. So if you should look at Portfolio Manager or any of the resources and feel like, oh, this is a lot, know that there really are people there to help.
I'll mention for Ilka and Keisha, we routinely do online, with this group, we take an hour, and my support contractor, Thayer Tomlinson, whom Jenny mentioned, will walk through how to benchmark. She will use generic data for a house of worship and show you step by step how to go. And we keep it very informal and take questions. So that's something we could do sometime in the future if you like.
Questions are coming through.
And we got a few, and thank you both again for the resources. I think I've walked through some of them and they're incredibly beneficial and very complex as well. But definitely for people that are more in the weeds and doing this every day, for them it might be a simpler tool than what they're currently using. So helping, just sharing and exploring might be an interesting option. We do have some questions here in the chat. So Barbara asked, what is the benefit to certification? And once certified, do you need to go through reevaluation at all in the future?
Certification, for one thing, tells everyone in the congregation and the community that you're walking the talk, that you're really achieving a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. It means that your house of worship is in the upper 25% of energy efficiency in the United States of worship facilities. We provide different types of promotional materials, flags, banners, plaques are available. We would work with the appropriate people to put together a press release for the local news media. We have social media talking points, all to share what you've accomplished, because it's beyond your worship facility. You're inspiring others and helping educate others. So it has kind of value coming and going for all of us. It is a 12-month certification. If you're certified for 2024, you're always certified for 2024. But we invite you to come back in 2025 and do it again. We've had congregations certify for, I don't know, a dozen years in a row, a lot. The headquarters of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops in Washington is certified for 8 years, their office building. So we're, always trying to recognize the achievement.
You, Jerry, and it definitely shows also, I don't know, when you're applying for grants and showing that you're certified.
Yeah.
Would definitely be a great advantage.
Excellent point.
I see another comment here from Rita saying our congregation is facing huge replacement costs for 50-plus-year-old building. That is where I've encountered problems in getting past the polite and even affirming listening stage. Any help there? Reverend Jen.
Yeah, so Rita, it seems to me that this is a huge opportunity. If the work is already getting done anyway, why, I mean, well, first of all, if it's a 50-year-old building, anything they do is going to have to be up to code, and that it will inherently be much more energy efficient, whatever renovation they do. And then there are strategies that they may use to make it even more efficient. But it almost, I mean, I'd be kind of curious about like what's already built into whatever planning is happening. Because I don't know, you know, like why a contractor wouldn't recommend LED light bulbs. That's like the standard now, for example, and um, appropriate insulation. So I don't know, if you want to like email me, we can chat about it. It's a little hard. I don't know how much Ilka to go into like one particular situation as an example for everyone, but I feel like I want to ask Rita a bunch of questions.
I would suggest, Rita, see if you know, talk to the right people, the business manager. See what 30% of your annual or monthly utility bills, best annual, it's going to be a big number. And if it's a typical median congregation, you know, you're wasting 30% of what you're paying for. Now, it may be less than that, or it could be more than that because it's an average. So there's a lot of money at stake that can go into higher priorities, be it salaries for staff, be it, you know, paying for new equipment or, church camp, you know, it's your priority. So there's money to be had. There's money being left on the table or being lost by doing nothing. So that's, you know, looking at a percentage of your annual bills could get past the polite or listening stage.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking, Jerry, there are rebate programs both through utilities
Yes.
and through state and federal government around like choosing particular paths around energy efficiency. Like if you're making choices about HVAC systems, for example, looking for various rebate programs, start with your local utility. And then, you know, just go deep with the Google, honestly, because it really does vary by location. But there's money, again, money on the table where you have to make decisions in the planning phase to be able to access the money, you know, at the implementation phase. So perhaps doing a bit of research for them and sharing the information about rebates or savings could help. But I appreciate, you know, when you feel like you've hit a wall, it's really hard to walk around it.
Jenny, thanks for mentioning rebates. We have a rebate finder at EnergyStar.gov. On the navigation bar at the top, products is on the far left end. Click on products and you'll see there a box or a link to the rebate finder. It's zip code driven. So just put in your zip code and see what rebates may be available. And as Jenny said, they're typically from utilities. Sometimes a product manufacturer may have a rebate, you know, at your Home Depot or Lowe's. So go ahead and you can look for rebates there.
Thank you both. Very helpful, and a reminder that we can save money, but specifically not just for the sake of saving money, but to reorient to our mission, which is what we want to do, right? Do more for our communities. Another question from Eric. Jerry, do you recommend a tool to quickly measure carbon footprint as a start for those that Energy Manager can be seen as daunting?
I'm not, is the question about Portfolio Manager or another tool?
If there's any other tool for carbon footprint
at EPA.gov, which is different, you know, that's our parent organization, but it's a different web page. EPA.gov, you can search there for carbon calculators or greenhouse gas emission calculators, because there you can look at transportation and other issues. I would add that you can also track single family home emissions in Portfolio Manager, or we have a sort of a more lightweight version called Home Energy Yardstick. So at EnergyStar.gov, there's a home performance along the top nav bar. And if you click on home performance, you'll see the home energy yardstick, and it's much easier to use than Portfolio Manager. I hope that helps.
Thank you. And a question for Jenny is still opening for Earth Day Keepers program for online sessions?
I'm sorry, but no, we're full up and already underway. But if you message me in the chat with your name and email and conference, I'll be glad to reach out to you when we have information about future sessions. It'd be great to have you.
Great. And do you how do your tools take into account different uses for Sunday school, mostly for the church, for example, childcare? Is there different uses for?
The key feature here is if it's all on the same electric meter, there's no differentiation. When you benchmark in Portfolio Manager, you will put in hours of operation, which if there's some variance there, and that's the kind of thing we can get into more depth on in a Portfolio Manager training. Or likewise, again, send me any, I gave my email address on the slide and in the chat. Send me any detailed questions like that.
Great. And then I'll just have one last one. A reminder, we'll send the recording and resources later. And then just one last question from Kim. She says, what are you finding green ways to heat large spaces like a Century that have high ceilings and leaky stained glass? Any tips there? Practical.
Well, it's not inexpensive, but in a sanctuary with a high ceiling, ceiling fans can be important year round. And if you don't have them, that would be an installation of some equipment that's going to cost. But in general, just weatherization. And here again, youth group at my church for years has done weatherization, caulking, weather stripping for homes in the community. So, maybe the pastor doesn't stand with the door open when people are coming in and out quite so long, or maybe the greetings, could be a little more quick. But again, in the stained glass at our church, ultimately there were for protecting them from vandalism as well. There are plexiglass covers outside that are essentially storm windows. And so they serve a dual purpose. Again, that's not inexpensive, but and the I've done a little hobbyist stained glass, and I know you're talking about lead caming. So it would be controversial to come in with caulk where you have lead glass issues, but there are different, you can get a caulk that looks like lead, that's a dark gray, that if you've really got a problem, and you don't want the glass to fall out. So you do need to either pay the price for redoing the stained glass, or come in with some the right color of a good silicone caulk.
Hey, one other thing on stained glass that I didn't realize was in the building Global Ministry shares with Cascade United Methodist Church until last week. I'd never noticed it before, but they popped out the stained glass windows, put energy efficient windows in, and then put the stained glass on like kind of barn door like rails so that you can slide it over the windows to let the light, the pretty stained glass light through. Or if you want more natural light in the space, you can slide the stained glass away. And it was like the rail was brass and looked all old, and it was so cool. Anyway, and Jerry, I don't know about telling the pastor to not talk as long with the constituents, but I'll remember that.
Do as much of that inside with the doors closed as possible.
Okay, good idea. That's better.
Well, thank you both. Those were really helpful, very practical and specific details, and also broader strategy insights that you both provided. And I'm really thankful. I think we're all very thankful for all your insights and getting to answer all of our questions. Thank you also for sharing your emails on the chat. And I want to take a little moment to give you some jazzy hands of appreciation for our speakers. If you all can help me sharing some emojis or doing your hands like this, like jazzy hand, to give thanks to Reverend Jenny and Jerry for their presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Well, and continuing talking on advocacy and next steps, we want to share some quick resources with you as well. We have our How to Congress to Prioritize Climate Justice Action Alert up. And we want to invite you. It includes different pieces of legislation that we want Congress to pass, including the Forest Act that was that we recently included in an action alert. We want to make sure that Congress is hearing regularly from us. These are action alerts that you can share with friends and family. So the more people that are sharing those up, it's very important. And you can also fill it up multiple times. I would advise once a month at least. Check out our resources and share fill out this action alert so that we make sure our voices are being heard, and important legislation that are climate justice related, climate resiliency that we need in our communities is being proposed. And where you want to find our action alerts that we have up, you can go to United Women in Faith Justice Actions page, also on the link that we'll be sharing on the chat, in our phone to action link that includes all of our action alerts, so you can always stay up to date to what we have currently. We also have a climate finance fair share action alert up, as well as a clean air action alert that we do in collaborative with our Breathe Again collaborative. And some also exciting news, we have our new Just Energy for All resource page. This is a page where you can find a lot of the resources that we create for our Just Energy for All campaign in one place. We did the work for you so that you can easily find all of that accessibly in just one click. You can find anything from our webinars or working group links, as well as our 2-pagers, any resources that are out, and you're going to be finding also a co-branded document there, which we just did with the Energy Star checklist, and hopefully you find that it's a very useful tool, a very simple tool, very quick, and anyone can use it to just kind of get a sense of what energy efficiencies can we do in our congregations, in our facilities. So next, that's the page. We will also be emailing it to you directly on your email, as well as all the resources and links that were shared here in the chat. We'll save the chat and share those with you, as well as other things that were mentioned, and some events as well that Global Ministries is putting up together related to energy efficiency and rebates. So we hope to share. Thank you again for your continued support, and we're really excited to have you all back for the new year in our programming.